Hey everyone, my name is Nathan Pay, and welcome to another episode of Coffee and Crypto. We have Miles, head of research at Blu Ocean Games Guild, here with us again today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you again for having me.
Yeah, so this one's an interesting topic. I wanted to talk about the big time update that just hit.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So before we dive into it, success or flop?
I would say success.
Okay.
I would say success. Everybody has to remember that this is still an alpha, and like we're not even in beta yet, and things are shaping up to the point now where the game is interesting enough and diverse enough that you can actually put some time into it. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, if I was speaking on behalf of my whole guild, I would say that there are some complaints here and there. For example, like one of the things in the past when you use a two-handed staff, you would be able to sort of aim down your reticle and that's where the staff would fire,
Mm-hmm.
and so you could use it to like shoot explosive barrels, for example, and explode a whole bunch of enemies without having to spend mana on a spell to do it. And now the two-handed staff, when you just auto attack with it, kind of just auto aims to particular enemies, and so you can't.
Oh,
So there's like an
interesting.
issue with that I think is kind of negative. I can say that there's a huge like skill balance change
Okay.
to
How
the
so?
game now. So I mean, in the past, a lot of people were struggling to figure out how they were going to make Shadow Blades, the damage dealer class, the class that was advertised as a damage dealer, do damage. And now they've buffed a lot of their skills and made them able to do probably the
They're
most
way
damage of
better
all.
now.
They're a lot better. And I would say their biggest negative, obviously, is that they have trouble keeping their energy up, so they need support, and that's conducive to party play, which is
Yeah.
obviously the point. But in
Well,
terms
that's
of which
huge.
class is being able to do the most burst damage the fastest, et cetera, if you're worried about clear speed and things like that, you want to be going down the Shadow Blade route, I think now,
That's nice because
which is different than before. Yeah,
before it was don't even play them.
yeah. Basically, before they were almost broken. They had little to medium functionality, and a lot of people were having difficulty making them effective
Mm-hmm.
without spending a lot of effort and time. And now you can spend less effort and time and see a return on their clear speed, I guess.
What's your experience with the new starting whole
I really
thing?
enjoyed it. So
Okay.
the new starting thing, I can see that a lot of gripes that people had with the original sort of concept of starting in big time is that you start at level 0, you go up a few levels, and then you're immediately like, okay, I've immediately found a pocket watch that's better than my current pocket watch, and so you switch back and you go back to level 0 and you have to start up over again,
Yep.
and that's fine, but it's not conducive to party play, especially if you're going to put restrictions on the level of people that can be inside your party.
Yes. Good
So
point.
that being the case, and now with people understanding that you can maybe go on a little bit further with your starting pocket watch if you really want to, you sort of get spit out in the main town at level 10. And so you're already at a level where you can go, okay, well, I just kind of want to keep going and party with some people. You're at a level where they can go, okay, well, we can accept you. And they've
That's nice.
they've eased up the level restrictions a little bit so that if you are level 10 and somebody's level 30 and you want to jump in with them,
Oh, they've
you're
eased that
still
too.
you're still able to get some EXP to the point where it's worth you being in a level 30
Yeah,
dungeon.
before it
And
wasn't at
so
all.
now it's actually worth it, like to risk your life for the most part. Example, I was with a partner guild, friends of ours, earlier today,
Mm-hmm.
and we were playing big time, and I was level, I want to say 14 or 15, and these guys were like in a level 35 dungeon. They're like, well, come on with us, maybe you'll get some EXP. And I got 2 or 3 levels worth of EXP. It was enough
Wow.
EXP that I felt like it was worth it for me to be there, and they were able to complete their party, which is supposed to hopefully increase your chances of getting NFTs, which we did find
Oh,
one. So
that's nice that they did
that
that.
was kind of nice.
Okay.
And so that being said, it just makes you, even if you're at a lower level, like feel like you can participate.
And they didn't
And
even talk too much about
so
that in
that
the
helped a
change
lot.
logs. Like when we just recently did a video where we went through all the change logs, and that's something I didn't really notice was like the level balancing stuff.
The change logs are pretty comprehensive, but they don't talk about the specific details of
That's
skill
right.
rebalancings that there are. For example, it didn't mention in the change logs that they had changed the time bubble skill, but the time bubble skill is not necessarily as effective as it was
Oh,
before.
interesting.
So a lot of
Okay.
players who leaned on Chronomancer in the time bubble before are like, I'm not sure if I should do this anymore because it starts so weak, but it looks
Oh,
like it might scale pretty well. I don't know if later on you can find the same time subtree, so more investigation needs to be done there before I can tell you for
okay.
sure or for not. But like Chronomancers will never be able to do quite as much damage as a Shadowblade will do now.
Oh,
So it
interesting.
might be worth it for you to be a Shadowblade.
What
And
was the starting experience like? Like, take me kind of through it if you
so, I
could.
mean, if we're being completely honest with you and without any major spoilers, you're going to go sort of into a main starting area that's going to bring you to some sort of like not really starting town, but a starting area where there's a couple of masters of
Okay.
the few different skill trees. I guess this, for example, there'll be 3 guys, one guy who's a chronomancer, one fire one trainer, and a lightning one trainer, and a cold one
I
trainer.
see.
So you can
Okay.
like save up a few $1,000s and get your first level into training for each of those things, so you can
Okay.
get firebolt, cold bolt, and or lightning bolt, whichever one you want to choose, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then go down that tree, and then you do a couple of things that I'm not going to spoil for you, and it ends up that you have to go to 4 different dungeons and sort of clear those 4 different dungeons
Okay.
and get these 4 different
Solo.
shards. But you have to do it solo, yeah. So the
Okay.
idea is that you're going to play a little solo for a little while and just get your idea of how the game actually operates. And then after you've done that, after about an hour and a half, I would say, probably of
Mm-hmm.
time, and you're about level 10 by the time you're spit out. And the leveling time is not super crazy. Like it'll be in an hour and a half, you'll be level 10. So
That's nice
then you
because the
can,
game didn't hold your hand at all really before.
yeah. So now there's more hand holding, but then once you get spit out, it's kind of like, okay, now that you know how the game works and the facets of it, you can go and do your thing. Here's the open world.
Have you noticed they added a
And
little bit more lore at all?
just a tiny bit, yes. They
Okay.
fleshed out the characters of lore a little bit. For example, there are the like masters of the 4 different classes, and it's clear to me that they're like loosely based on like some of the, like for example, the master for chronomancer is Erwin Schrödinger,
Oh,
and it's
cool.
clear to me that he's like loosely based on a very stereotypical version of Erwin Schrödinger.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's you have to consider who's designing the game.
Okay.
So I mean, if it's
That's
if it's a
cool.
translation from like people who are not from North America who are designing this game, it's still considering that pretty good.
Nice.
And the second thing that I can tell you is that in the past in this game, which is a thing that people may not talk about a whole lot, it's been easy or not super proper, but you can sort of glitch your way up cliffs a little bit and up areas where you're not supposed to be able to go, and you
Yes.
end up falling off the stage and you end up going somewhere where you're not supposed to
Yeah,
before
or
you're
ski
supposed to get
zones
there.
that weren't yet developed
Exactly.
and stuff.
Oh, that has been toned down a lot. Their level design has improved a lot, where it still looks clean and it still looks nice from a distance, but at the same time, if you try to go up to the front of it and like scale it, you won't be able to scale
Oh,
the top
nice.
of
I
it
think
really
it's good
easily.
that they fixed that.
And because of that, and I did a lot of time sort of testing that. I've been doing a fair bit of like focus group playtesting work, and that was one of the things I wanted to see, just to make sure that they're really thinking about this right to the
Yep.
very bottom of it. And yeah, you can't go places where you're not supposed to be able to go easily anymore, and if you can, there's nothing to really be gained from that,
Okay.
which is a big thing, because that means that you won't be able to glitch your way through playthroughs
Or
really easily,
zones
or
or
zones where you're
yeah.
not supposed to be really easily,
Mm-hmm.
and it would be much tougher for you to do things that you're not supposed to do easily. I think my only gripe is that they released a lot of their NFTs, and the ability to earn those NFTs sort of before the game was developed to a point where everything was balanced. And now that things are more balanced and it's a bit more restrictive for you to develop your character so suddenly and go to the harder places and get a bunch of those NFTs.
Mm-hmm.
So the NFTs are a little bit harder to find now, I find. And some people are wondering, well, did they kind of turn the faucet off, or what's going on? You know what I mean? And it would have been nice for them to maybe have hold it off a bit on the release of those things and kept the faucet off a little bit longer until we reach this point, before they go, okay, well now all the NFTs are going to be released and you can earn them in the game, and it would be a great time for that whole thing to be happening now and not.
But it helps people who were playing before, like us, who've stockpiled a lot of NFTs when it was easier to find them. So if anything, maybe it's increasing the value for people who played earlier.
You're maybe not wrong about that. I just think that if somebody was thinking about playing the game now and their friend
Mm-hmm.
told them, well, now it's not as easy to find things as it
I
was
see. It's a
6 weeks ago, they might
terrible.
be turned off just a tiny bit. And I'm just hoping that they'll have some other things, or they'll more opportunities to release with the release of this new, like, improved alpha, you know what I mean?
Yep.
And going forward, to keep those new people engaged, you
That's
know
a
what I
good
mean?
point. Yeah.
So and I'm not super worried about it, because I know they have a lot of other things that they not only the ability to find spaces in game, but the ability to find cosmetics for your spaces in
Plus,
game, and
they're
et cetera,
saying
et cetera,
tokens you will be able
and
to collect.
NPCs for those, et cetera.
Yep.
And not only just that, but they've also released their line of I guess you would call them like emote NFTs.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Where they're basically just like Dark Souls emotes that and those are going to go, so everybody's going to want to have those. Those are
Yes.
amazing. So anyway, the ability to find those and other things will draw people in, I think. So
Me too.
I just hope that they are prepared for that.
And another thing I was going to mention is I hope they still do what they were originally planning on, which was allowing you to farm the token from just regular mobs and raid bosses and stuff like that.
Yes, their whole system with the timekeepers and the what do they call them, the hourglasses,
Yep.
and that keeping them filled with sand and etc. I think that's still going to be a thing. And once that's on, and there's other things to be found, and there's tokens to be gotten,
Mm-hmm.
everything is going to be sort of like ramping up, I think, and the market
It's
will
going to be a
likely
grind
be a
fest.
different place by then. So
Yeah.
it's and that's the other thing, is that you have to be. This is going to be a grind heavy game, and a lot of people are kind of dreading that a little bit now. But once it gets more interesting and more people are playing it, and further down the line when things are maybe
Mm-hmm.
worth a little bit more, I feel like those same people are going to be really excited to grind in this game.
Same. And I wonder if they'll add like 40-man raids. So instead, like expand past the 6 player
I have my
at all.
suspicion that sooner or later they're gonna do that.
Mm-hmm.
I expect that they'll start with like 24, and the
Yes.
reason why that would be is because it would be for sort of four teams of six, and they could just connect the teams of six,
Mm-hmm.
and so probably they'll start there, and then they'll work their way up.
That would be really cool
And
to
I think
see.
that would be the smart thing to do because, yeah, like right now we're already at a point where we have teams of six every time when we're
Yep.
playing with our guild, and there's another guild, and we would like to be playing with them, but if we have two teams of six, we can't really collaborate.
Mm-hmm.
So I see that being the next step
Yeah, same here. Have you had a
to
chance to play the new dungeon yet?
which new dungeon is that? I don't think
There's just
so.
one that they announced. It was a new, and I don't think I've seen anyone play it yet either because I think it's one of the
It's probably
higher
a higher
tier.
level dungeon. I don't think I've
But it,
seen the new dungeon
yeah,
yet.
so they,
No.
that was something that really stood out to me from the changelogs was there was a new dungeon tile map, a new.
One thing I can tell you is that I did set the post processing of the game and everything to maximum and was playing through
Oh,
the
cool.
intro that way. And
Okay.
you get to see some of the familiar tile sets, but updated,
Okay.
and they look really, really good.
Nice.
The game looks really good.
Yeah, just the aesthetic improvements are
Yeah,
also
all the
nice.
aesthetic improvements are very. You don't really you can't really name all of them, and
Yes,
they're all
there's so
listed
many.
there somewhere in the change logs. But once you actually just play the game, you're like, wow, this feels nicer and it looks nicer and everything runs a bit smoother.
Yeah.
And the other thing I can tell you is that I do have two systems that I play games on. One of them
Mm-hmm.
is an upper end system, and the other one is like a sort of low to medium end system that does have 2 gigabytes of video memory, but it's mostly there for me to do recordings of audio stuff
Mm-hmm.
and to do my office work and etc.
Yep.
And it's very portable. And I have had a chance to play this game and other games on both of them, and this game runs significantly well on the lower end machine,
Oh, nice.
considering.
That's really
And that's
good.
super important because if their low end is not that high, that means that people who are playing on machines that are 2 to 5 years
Yep.
old are going to be like, oh, it runs fine, it looks beautiful,
Nice.
and that's what we want.
Yes, you do. It's going to help
So
with onboarding and
pretty happy with that.
accessibility and
Yeah,
stuff
pretty
like
happy
that.
with that.
One thing that really got me excited, probably more than I thought it should, was the new footsteps that they added in. So there's now like an NFT that you can get that adds these like fiery or golden
Yeah,
footsteps.
I've seen that, and
They're
I think
calling them
it's
like footstep emotes, I
I
guess.
think it's
But
really, really cool. And if it was me, I might have gone a slightly different route, but with the same end goal. I
okay.
remember that in Diablo 2, there was a couple of like unique boots that you could get that
Yes.
gave you things like firewalk and stuff like that. And they
Hmm.
actually had an effect in the game, and they weren't crazy. And it was an effect that you could get otherwise,
Yep.
but it was just really cool to have that on a set of boots and it be like a unique set of boots. So they're kind of going in that direction
Hmm.
without it affecting gameplay, which I
Yeah.
think is the smarter route for balance.
So they
But
want it to be cosmetic
yeah, but it's
NFT.
really cool, and I absolutely agree with you. I think it's nuts. I
Hmm.
like it a lot.
I think probably one of my favorite changes overall is the buff to the shadow, the rogue, basically.
I'm really stoked about the
Shadowblade.
buffs to the Shadow Blade. So basically, I was playing with somebody who was a higher level Shadow Blade, and he was master of traps, and he was using the Shuriken and Shuriken fan, and he was sort of demonstrating that you can really scale your Shuriken damage properly with strength and with critical, and you can really scale your trap damage with intelligence. And if you raise both of those things at the same time, you'll have the mana to use them both, as long as
Oh,
you
I
have proper
see.
support. So
Okay.
that means that later on, if we want to deploy like a high burst damage character, as long as we have like a quantum fixer in the back or somebody supporting them with some mana regen, then we'll be able to maintain some
Which is
pretty
nice
fast
because
clear
really it
speed
was like
with
50
medium
percent
risk.
50% of the team was time warriors all the time.
That's true. Yeah,
Right?
in the past that's a fact. And there's still a place for them. It's not like they're useless now
Yes.
because we still need somebody to draw the aggro while somebody's doing all the
Yep.
DPS. And they can still do a fair bit of DPS themselves because they've received a few hot fixes themselves.
Hmm.
There was a time earlier in this patch where you would use your whirlwind and it would just be interrupted by an enemy giving you damage, and now
Oh,
that's been
geez.
fixed.
Okay.
And there's actually been a couple of skills added that also make you uninterruptible while you're attacking, which will help with that too. So
How is some of the skill changes and the talent changes?
they are
Like, is
very
it across
deliberate.
all of the
Yeah, they're very
classes?
deliberate. Basically, they've a lot of them haven't really been changed in mechanic or in number, but they've been changed in the sense that they just feel a bit more streamlined.
Okay.
And that's a good example would be the whirlwind. Like the damage numbers and everything didn't really change, but
Okay.
they've made it a little bit more streamlined now. So you can't just like auto dodge out of it and you can't cancel it and things like that like you could before,
Nice.
which was a big problem because people would do like
Yes.
a whirlwind and then they would cancel out of the whirlwind and still be whirlwinding and then be able to use another skill and things like that,
Oh, okay.
which
Kind
is
of
sort of
cheated a
yeah,
little bit.
which is like not cheating, but it's exploiting.
Yep.
And it's those very same exploits that they're trying to find and get out of the game so that it's all balanced by the time it's ready for release.
Hmm. Yeah, no, I remember you mentioning kind of one of the complaints. Was there anything else that you've noticed anyone have brought up that they're not a big fan of with the changes or anything like that?
There's one, I would say it's not really a negative thing. It's actually kind of a positive thing. It's a lot of people are complaining that it's, space is an issue, and then now we have our personal metaverses, which kind of solve that issue a little bit. But the other thing that really solved that issue a little bit is like, oh, people were kind of choked that they found 8 slot and 10 slot bags and now they don't have them anymore. Well, when you go through the intro, the 1.5 hour intro, by the time you get out of that, you get spit out at the beginning with the ability to go into your metaverse and a 4 slot bag, which is a kind of nice
Nice.
change. You know what I mean?
Okay, I see.
So yeah,
But they just shifted it
yeah, it
over,
was a
so
complaint at the beginning, which is now less of a complaint because they've added this whole intro to the game, and they did this. You basically get a couple extra spaces in your inventory, which has always been a huge problem.
oh, here's another big thing. They added more rooms to the spaces. They added more
Yeah, that's right. The
accessibility.
space itself is now a little bit bigger.
Now, what I'm
You know,
curious
a little
about is
bit
the default space also a little
the
bigger.
personal metaverse. I don't know about that.
Okay.
I think it's the same size, but it was already pretty sizable to begin with. Um, and just a personal space with 2 rooms, the way that it is, like it's 2 small sort of box rooms. You have the ability to basically put 2 doors on each of those walls if you wanted those places to go to. I don't know exactly how that's going to work, but if it was like there's going to be a bunch of doors that go to your friend's spaces, that's going to work just
Yeah,
fine.
they also showed you can like put cosmetics and chairs and
Yeah,
stuff
and I
like
was
that in
actually
there.
playing with a couple of guild members from another guild that told me that their friend found a legendary like cosmetic thing for their space, and I was like, that's really
Ah.
interesting to know that those are out there and that you can find them, and
Mm-hmm.
you can even find them from the like 10 shards that you might get and give to the shard trader. So
Nice.
that's
Okay.
another interesting thing to
They
know.
also increased the artifact fragment. Like it's no longer 10. You can hold more. I noticed that in the change logs, and I'm wondering, did they just add it to 15? Did they just do 20? So I'm going to be curious because that's nice because inventory space was always an issue.
Yeah,
You don't want to
no,
throw
it's
away
actually it's
those.
I think it's I want to say 5 by 10. It might even be 50 spaces that you get in your like stash that you get in your space,
But I
and you
also
can.
think they just changed you could only hold 10 artifact fragments per slot.
Oh, I wonder if they've changed that.
They
Yeah,
did.
that would be
They
good.
said that they added that. I
That would
noticed
be
that in the
good because
change
that was a
logs.
huge problem before too.
It was. Well, inventory space has kind of been my biggest complaint, I would say, up to this point. Like, I'm spending most of my time assessing the gear that I can just throw out and destroy rather than, or waiting to get to the vendor to kind of just unload everything.
They
And
do
it,
have some gold walls behind some stuff now with the
oh,
necessity
do they?
to pay money to pay gold to train up your skills and things like that.
Okay.
And that's actually a good thing because it really incentivizes you to not die and go to really really high level dungeons to see if you
I
can make it,
see.
and instead sort of play it safe so you can save your money up and actually get those things.
Yep.
And that's
That's
sort of
nice.
incentivizing those crazy people to stop being crazy and just play the game properly.
Okay. And
And I
then,
can tell that that's their intention. They want people to stop trying to like run out of the lines so much and just play within the lines a little bit more. And
which
they've
is impressive for an alpha.
well, so the thing about that is that with any sort of game development, especially when there's level development involved, you really want to pretend that your like player base is just like a bunch of cats that are going to try to go places that they're not supposed to go. And if you just
Good
patch up
analogy.
all those places in alpha, then
Hmm.
once you release this to like the giant million bowl of cats that's waiting for you, they won't be able to go anywhere they're not supposed to go, and they'll be able to do anything they're not supposed to do, and then they won't hopefully won't complain about those
And
things.
it's good that they had people helping them figure that out. And like, that's the whole point of an alpha
And
and
then the
stuff, too.
last thing I wanted to say is that there is one place in the actual original level design of the overworld in this game where you kind of scale up a mountain and you're not sure if you're going to be able to walk up this mountain, and so you kind of can, and then you just go further on and you're able to enter another area via the other side.
Oh, interesting.
And
Okay.
everybody's really been talking about like, I hope they don't change this, I hope they don't patch this. They patched it and they didn't make it inaccessible like on purpose, and I think that's because people liked being able to go up that way just to go to the other side,
Oh,
because it's on the
interesting.
overworld and it doesn't really change anything. It just kind of saves people time as they're walking.
I see, like a
So it's
shortcut.
clear to me that they're actually like, hearing,
Assessing it.
assessing it, and they're hearing what the players are saying and not trying to step on people's toes too much,
That's good.
without leaving open patches in their game.
And I kind of do like that the NFTs are harder to get now because, like, how else are you going to reward your early access players and the players who first started grinding and stuff like
That's
this?
true. I'm of that mindset as well, and
But I get your point about a
I don't
turn off
think
for
that
the
that's
big.
bias, but yeah, a lot of people are like, have they turned off the faucet? Like, what's going on? And no, it's clear to me that you can still find those NFTs, the really really rare ones too, and from the weirdest places, like your NFT artifact shards.
Yeah,
But
and also we learned like you need to be a high level. The higher level and the more difficult the dungeon, the better the
But the
chance.
other thing that we have to forget is that they're also taking snapshots for airdrops too. So
Yes.
those might be worth a lot of money. And if you're just not somebody who's playing 50 dungeons a week, maybe you're not getting those. But if you are and you're concerned that you're not getting as much, well, maybe that's a thing that we weren't getting before, even when we
Yeah,
were
and it's
doing our
interesting. It's not just for
50
space
dungeons a week.
holders. They're sending airdrops for people who are literally playing. So I
Yeah,
do think
for
they're recording the time
they're
spent.
rewarding the amount of time and dungeons cleared,
Yeah.
and they also do like actual daily. Like they had a daily event today, like a public event
Oh,
that
nice. Okay.
I was gonna go into, but it conflicted with our time
I
today.
see.
So
Well, maybe that's the
um,
last question I'll ask you because they also added in the quest boards.
Yeah.
Have you had a chance to kind of
Not
mess around with that
really, but
yet?
I do
Okay.
want to mess around with it a little bit because it's clear to me that it'll be just extra EXP and or items that you might get on top of what you were getting before,
Yep.
and it adds a little bit of direction as to what you might do.
I think it might help with the
You know what I mean?
gold paywalls a little
And the
bit.
last thing is that if you're playing solo and you're wondering if there's anything you can do while you're playing solo and all your friends are asleep or something like that, maybe you can go to a dungeon that's your level or a bit lower and do some of those daily quests
That's a good
just to get
point.
something done. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And you won't feel like you're. And there's no class, I think, now that can't play the game solo.
Okay.
It's just that it's the most rewarding for you to play it in a party.
Yeah.
But so I feel like this daily quest thing will help people be able to do their like 30 minutes or 50 minutes of gaming if that's all they want to do when there's nobody else around type thing.
Yes,
Like
that
if it's
makes
just
sense
like
to me.
12 o'clock and I want to play a dungeon before I go to bed.
And
Then
they can.
you can do a daily quest. You can
Yeah.
choose what kind of dungeon you might do, and then play a dungeon that's not super high level, so you don't go crazy and die, and then get something done.
That's a good point. Good
So
point.
that's important. Maybe they're thinking about that.
Yeah, I hope so because like the solo stuff, I get it. That's a party oriented game, but there are times when maybe it's a little difficult to find a party, or you're not the right level, or we've kind of seen that where you all have to kind of go to the Frankfurt server or
So
certain
I have
popular
my
ones.
theories about that. A lot of people have their theories that it has to do with A or B sort of popularity wise, but I don't think that's true. I feel like the reason why that people coagulate in Frankfurt is because it is the place where anybody, whether it be in North America or in the Southeast Asia, can get a decent ping and then
Play
play with each
together.
other.
Yes.
And so a lot of us, like a lot of our guild members, are in Southeast Asia, and they'll go, "Hey, can we maybe not play in North America today? My ping is 400."
Yeah,
But if we all go to Frankfurt and get 180 ping,
it's
it's
much
it's
easier.
decent for everybody, and so then you end up finding a lot more people there, and so then now we have this reputation of if you go to Frankfurt, that's the place in the very center. You're likely to find the most people there, and you're likely to find people dropping items they don't want there and things
Hmm.
like that there. So that's the only reason why I think people are coagulating over in the Frankfurt server. But
That makes sense.
when the taps turn on and people are turning their attention towards the space, and there's 10 times as many players as there were looking to play big time, that's when it's going to be important for them to have multiple servers so
I
that
agree.
there isn't too many people on one server and things don't get too crazy.
Cool. Well, one thing I'll mention too, if anyone watching this, feel free to jump into our Discord. We're often playing Big Time. You can see us down in the Big Time voice chat channel. Feel free to jump in even if you have any questions. Maybe you need some help getting started. We're definitely happy to help. Thanks so much for talking to me
Also, I
about this
just wanted
today
to say a
too.
quick shout out to the Vamp Games Guild, who I played some big time with earlier today and over last week. They helped me a lot after I had to restart my character, which I miss so
Yeah,
much.
the
But
wipe is
I'm
normal.
back on my way now, and they helped a little bit. They're good dudes, and they game with us sometimes. So
Awesome.
just thought I'd mention them. They're pretty nice.
Yeah, like we can just play with you as an individual, or if you have a group of players, like definitely feel free to come join in the fun.
Join
And
our
thanks so
party.
much for joining us today, Miles. I really
Yeah,
appreciate it. It was
thank you for
great
having
talking
me.
about the big time update. Everyone's really excited about this. It seems like it definitely has been a
I'm
success
stoked to go home and
overall.
play some.
Yeah, me too. And thanks so much for joining us today. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already for more big time content. And until next time, cheers. Don't forget about our 1,000 subscriber giveaway where you can win $200. And if you need more information, be sure to join us on our Discord. See you there.